Good morning, everyone. Welcome. It is FPC Radio Live. It is Friday, February 23rd. We are almost through the second month of 2023. And, well, look, Super Bowl's in the rear view mirror. We are full on heading towards the new league year. We got free agency coming up in just a few weeks, obviously. And then everything that follows after that, the draft, training camps. And you know what, John? In just a few months, just around the corner, we're going to be watching Aaron Rodgers play for another football team. How about that?
That's going to be interesting, right?
I'm committed to that. I want to see it. I want to see him play somewhere else. You talk about it all the time, the cool jersey thing. I know it has nothing to do with football, but I want to see him in a different jersey. Maybe not, I just want to see what he can do somewhere else. I still don't know exactly where that's going to be. We kind of last week, I kind of screwed up the dates for Aaron Rodgers' retreat, but apparently he emerged yesterday, not last week. Apparently we misread the dates. Either way, I don't know if you saw his swanky little hut. Did you see the pictures of it? Like a little queen bed, a little meditation mat, and it seemed interesting, seemed comfortable. I don't know if I could do 4 days of that.
Well, he ended up doing 2 days, I guess, right? Because right on brand, he's only good for 2 of 4 quarters, good quarters in big games. So that was perfect.
That's coming from you, not me. That's coming from you, not me.
I'm an equal opportunity
hater.
Critic.
Yeah, critic.
Well,
okay.
Hater.
No, definitely
I don't
not.
hate the man. He's my favorite player. He's interesting. I think he's the most interesting guy in the league. He's strange. I mean, he loves to be the center of attention. But then when he becomes the center of attention, he kind of pushes back. Like, why are people talking about me? Because that's what you like. So, he's got all of that going on. But yeah, I think he only did 2 days, 300 square feet with the queen bed, the meditation mat. There was a bathroom there. But apparently you could put lights on in there. So hopefully he didn't, because what's the point of this? The thing is to be in total darkness for 2, 3, 4 days, whatever.
Yeah. And look, I mean, this wasn't quite, Andy Dufresne's cell at Shawshank, but it's still, that's a little too cramped and a little too nothing going on for me. I mean, I'd have to have a lot of I'd have to have a lot of something to keep me occupied for those 2 hours. Preferably something mind altering. Even though I'm not, that's not me. But if I was stuck in a room like that, you got to give me something. I'm being lost in my own thoughts. I don't know if that's a good thing.
Could be dangerous.
Yeah. It could be. No, I mean, it looked comfortable, and to be honest, John, I have a weird thing. So I hate the cold. I saw snow the other day, very, very faintly, but there was snow in Las Vegas, Nevada. As crazy as that sounds, but I did see snow. It was flurrying a little bit and didn't really quite stick, but I saw it. It was cold. I don't really like it. There's a reason why I moved from Massachusetts, and it's not because of the mountains. It's not because of the teams, and it's basically because of the cold. I was like, you know what? I'm good. Now I live down here in 70-degree, 80-degree weather all the time. So, but the idea of having like a little hobbit-like hut in the ground and like being on like a I don't know, like surviving outside in the cold for like a week, like for like a vacation, that seems appealing to me. I don't know why. Again, I would have to have certain things to occupy my time, but I kind of like the cool little hobbit hut there.
Yeah, it does sound interesting. I mean, you don't want to go all full Leonardo DiCaprio in The Revenant, right? Where he's out in the wilderness, sleeping inside the coating of a bear, which was one of the wildest scenes I think I've ever seen, only surpassed by the other scene with the bear. So,
look, yeah, I would have. If I were to go live out in the wilderness, I would have to cheat a little bit and have some sort of luxuries. Like I've mentioned this on the show before. I watch that Life Below Zero show a lot, where it's basically just following people who live up in Alaska. Some of them in some very remote areas. So there's a lot of the same ideas involved. I would just have to have a few luxuries, though. A few things to keep me comfortable. I don't know. But I think I would enjoy it for a few days, especially if I know that I could be back in, again, beach weather in a matter of days, and I can just only experience it for that short period of time. I couldn't live in it. Definitely couldn't do that.
Well, that's the thing with Aaron Rodgers' darkness retreat. He could call it off when he felt like it, or the max was going to be 4 days, the minimum 2 days. So he'd be able to get out and go back to his, I'm sure, mansion in Southern California, the one he's building in Nashville, or his place in Green Bay, which might be for sale. That's the next telltale sign, right? Is if
Yeah.
he's going to be leaving. If the mansion in Wisconsin's for sale, that's kind of it gives you an idea that he's on his way out. Kind of like when Brady put up his mansion in Brookline early in 2019. You're like, okay, this means he wants to move on.
Mm-hmm.
So that will be interesting. I remember a couple of years ago, he renewed his golf membership at some country club in Green Bay, and people were like, okay, he's coming back. Again, with the money these guys have, you renew a club membership for even $50,000. It's not like it's going to sink them. But there's still be little nuggets that we can see. I think he's gone, and I think the Raiders and Jets make the most sense. But sometimes there could be a third team that emerges that surprises us and knocks the Packers over with an offer that they can't refuse, as long as he's willing to go there, because he seems to be the guy that, if it's a place he doesn't want to go, he'll just retire.
Yeah.
And although I still think there's too much money at stake for him to retire. And again, you bring it up, and I think it's brilliant. He does not want to go into the Hall of Fame the same year that Tom Brady goes in. It would become somewhat of a footnote on that day.
Look, I mean, and I don't mean this as an insult. I mean, because he's been kind of a footnote his entire career to Tom Brady. You know what I mean? So it's like the last thing he wants to do is, because he'll go in first ballot, I would assume. I can't see why, he wouldn't. I mean, I can see an argument. I mean, it really, honestly, John, it depends on the group that's with him. But I kind of, I don't know. I would find it hard to believe that. And these, look, my opinion of first ballot is, I mean, you got to really, really be like the best of the best of the best of the best. And I mean, now it's like, players that, I mean, it doesn't really matter what ballot you go into, but I don't know. I feel like there's been this need to push people in. So in that sense, and I do believe that his career at the very least warrants a discussion for it. I think between those two things, he'll likely be a first ballot Hall of Famer. But again, like I said, if his competition is Tom Brady and some other player, like maybe they decide, well, maybe we'll push Rodgers back. And I don't know if he wants that, or do I think he wants to share the stage with Tom Brady? Because, well, how do you follow his resume? You know what I mean? Especially if you're Aaron Rodgers, it's about celebrating. And likely Tom Brady would, they'd probably do him last, or actually, I don't know. I think they went alphabetical order last time. So he'd probably go first. Yeah. Trust me, Aaron Rodgers has had a great career. You start talking about his accomplishments following the 15 to 20, 30 minutes you just spent talking about Tom Brady. Well, guess what? It's going to be a lackluster day for Rodgers. So yeah, I don't think he wants that. And really, look, he doesn't have a no trade clause, but for all intents and purposes, he does, because of the money, because of, like you said, the threat of retiring or the possibility. Not that he's threatened to retire, but really, Green Bay is, for a lot of reasons, they're not. I don't think they're ultimately going to get a lot for Aaron Rodgers. The age, the contract, obviously the situation. We saw, we talked about this, you and I, on the Full Press NFL podcast, but we've seen dueling reports over the last couple weeks about the state of the relationship between Rodgers and the Packers. And the most recent one felt more like a kind of saving face a little bit, because the original report, although I don't think every bit of information about it is 100% true, because I mean, it used some pretty strong language, John, to describe the Packers' feelings towards Rodgers and vice versa. I don't know if it's that ferocious, I guess, but excuse me. I do think that the Packers are ready to move on, and they'd prefer to move on. It's just it's going to be a tricky situation, because they really don't have any leverage, except for the fact that Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers, and some team out there, not even wildly desperate for a quarterback, but maybe mildly desperate for a quarterback, might give them pretty close to the value they're looking for him, despite all the other situations. But at the end of the day, John, if Aaron Rodgers doesn't want to go there, the Packers aren't going to be able to trade him, because the team, again, he could threaten to retire.
Right. I mean, if he comes out and says San Francisco or nowhere else, what do the Packers do? I mean, they seem adamant that they want to trade him to the AFC, not the NFC. But if you get nothing in return for him, and then the salary cap issues, maybe you send him to San Francisco. I've never been opposed to trading a guy within the conference. Look, I mean, you have to move on at some point. Get as much as you can for him. He's only going to probably play 2 with a max 3 years, so you go from there. So maybe that's going to be his leverage. Obviously, Brett Favre, they got a 3rd-round pick for. I think Rodgers right now is better than Brett Favre was 15 years ago. So I think you could maybe get a 2nd and a 4th, and maybe get a player along with that, maybe just like a depth piece or whatever to kind of make things work out that way. I don't think you're going to get what Seattle got for Russell Wilson or what Houston got for Deshaun Watson, because those guys were younger than Aaron Rodgers is. Now, the Seattle haul for Russell Wilson looks like a home run from them, because we don't know what Russell Wilson's going to do in year 2 in Denver. You would think he should be better than year 1. He can't be much worse than that. And Watson wasn't very good last year, but he's still a young quarterback who missed nearly 2 years. So I don't think you're going to get, multiple firsts and all of that stuff for Aaron Rodgers. A 2nd and a 4th, maybe that works. And again, it's going to be decided upon where he goes a lot by him.
Yeah. And look, I mean, he kind of has he's earned that right to, at this point in his career, to kind of have more of a say on where he goes. And again, I don't know if this whole situation is, each side trying to get one up on each other. Like, again, that first report of the team being disgusted with Aaron Rodgers, you know what I mean? I don't know if I believe the extent of their frustration, if there is frustration at all. I do believe it's more so just it's time to move on. I think the team is just they want to kind of just rip the Band-Aid off and move it forward with who they have in Jordan Love and see what they have in Jordan Love. At the same time that they did that with Favre and Rodgers back in the day. This is, Aaron Rodgers entering year 4 was when he took the starting job. And, well, guess what? Jordan Love is entering year 4. So there's a lot of similarities, a lot of symmetry to Rodgers and especially Favre, and now the situations and how they're being replaced. So, or at least we're assuming. So,
one more note on the Hall of Fame thing too.
Yeah.
If he's going to have to share the stage with Tom Brady. I mean, Tom Brady going to the Hall of Fame is going to be similar to Michael Jordan going into the Basketball Hall of Fame. Maybe he'll have a speech where he's, still hateful to everybody. I doubt it. Brady kind of covers that up a little bit more. I mean, remember Jordan's Hall of Fame speech where it just was like, 20 minutes of just shots at everybody. But Jordan's class in 2009, like no one will remember that these guys went into the Hall of Fame that day. They're all Hall of Fame players. It was David Robinson, Jerry Sloan, who went in as a coach, John Stockton. Those were the main participants in that Hall of Fame class. They all took a backseat to Michael Jordan, because everybody takes a backseat to Michael Jordan. Look, J.J. Watt is probably going to be in the Hall of Fame in the same class with Tom Brady. Great player. But we're just going to remember Tom Brady on that day, much more so than anyone. A few years ago, we remembered Peyton Manning when he got into the Hall of Fame, or Ray Lewis before that. Every maybe 3 or 4 years, there's an all-time great player, and it's their day. And that's going to be the case with Tom Brady in 5 years.
Yeah, and that's really, and that's the thing. This doesn't happen all the time. This isn't an every year occurrence. I mean, this isn't any disrespect to whoever goes in with him, but the reality of it is it's that day in 5 years is really going to be about Tom Brady. I mean, let's face it, it is what it is. And maybe perhaps, John, this opens the door. And again, maybe the voters will see an opportunity to maybe push forward some guys that very well deserve to be in, that have been waiting for a long time. If they want to give more, I don't know, give more of the stage to some of these younger guys that more of the fans today have seen, like J.J. Watt. Maybe they don't vote J.J. Watt in first ballot, which, again, people will be like, oh my God, how could J.J. Watt not be first ballot? Well, I don't know. To me, it's overused, or at least it's overemphasized by players. And, in more recent history, there's been they've been more prone to put players in on their first ballot, but there are so many players out there now that have been waiting for years that are just as deserving, if not more, than some of the guys going in. And the reality of it is, I think first ballot, like very first opportunity, should be reserved for, like I said, the best of the best of the best. I mean, your Jim Browns, your Tom Brady's, Peyton Manning's, Joe Montana, those guys. Not like, I don't know. Again, I'm trying not to be disrespectful to other Hall of Fame players, but let's face it, there are tiers of players in the Hall of Fame, just like there are tiers of players in the NFL. Not every player is created equal. Some are better than others, and that's just the reality. And I think that warrants a bigger celebration or bigger amount of attention towards players. But that's just me, John. That's just me.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously you have to see who else is eligible that given year. I mean, J.J. Watt's 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. That's tough to turn down in terms of a first-time ballot. There's always an offensive lineman that's in the fray, right? I mean, this year's Joe Thomas, who I think is deserving. But, if there had been other offensive linemen that were still in the queue, then maybe he has to wait a year. I mean, look, Mike Haynes to me is the best cornerback in the history of the sport, at least, post-Super Bowl era. And he was not a first-time Hall of Famer, first ballot Hall of Famer. Bill Parcells, one of my favorite coaches, one of the greatest coaches, was not a first ballot Hall of Famer. They eventually got in. Terrell Owens, remember, he put up a massive stink when he was in a first ballot Hall of Famer. He got in his second or third time.
And if you think about it, that was kind of when things started to shift a lot over the last 10, 15 years, is this idea that, if you're not a first ballot Hall of Famer, you're disrespected. It's like, no. I mean, look, did T.O. deserve to get in? I mean, you can make a case, but do I think he was a first ballot Hall of Famer? No. And that doesn't mean he wasn't a great player. But, when you're talking about the most impactful, greatest players of this sport, you're going to take a long time before you get to Terrell Owens. And save me the stat discussion. This isn't just about stats. This is about his impact on the game and what he did. And like I said, I mean, he had his moments, but great player, certainly a Hall of Famer. But if we're trying to, if first ballot really means that much, and I don't think it does anymore, then I don't believe he was deserving of first ballot. So, but guess what? He put up a stink. And it was in this era of 24/7 news coverage and the dawning of social media. I mean, this was a few years before that, but still, the point being, like, he was here where a lot of people were able to see his big stink. And now, we see it all the time. It's a, groupthink. Everyone's, T.O. deserves to be first ballot. Devin Hester deserves to be first. No, he doesn't. I'm sorry. Devin Hester does not deserve to be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
No.
Let's talk about some of these other great special teams players that aren't in the Hall of Fame yet. So, it's just it's a weird thing that I think first ballot should be reserved for really the best of the best of the best. But unfortunately, much like a lot of the things that we see now, like GOAT, the term has been devalued significantly.
It's singular, greatest.
Yeah.
Like, I still can't understand
John,
why
trust
there's
me.
9 million goats out there unless you're at a goat farm. But I mean,
trust me, I know that I wake up in the middle of the night in sweats thinking about the illogical discussion that comes from that. Not just
you have to speak to someone about that. That's a serious issue.
That's a health problem I need to take care of. But like I said, it might begin with me just blocking out the just, I don't know, the whole idea of greatest and best being different. And I don't know. But see, my head's rattling right now. I'm like almost at an overload point where I'm just going to shut down and just, that's it. I can't handle it. So it's like, when
if you go online, if you go for synonyms, I think they're together, right? Great.
They are. Oh, trust me. Trust me. I know. I've told a lot of people that they literally mean the same exact thing. And they're like, no. Greatest means that. No, that's it's like an AI simulation. If you want to trip it up, you give them a bunch of instructions and it basically just stumbles and then shuts down. That's what I'm at right now. Like, whenever I see that, I try to logically explain the difference between the two, or the similarities between the two. I mean, by literally showing them the dictionary definition of both, and it still doesn't matter. So, but anyways, the point is, GOAT devalued. first ballot Hall of Famer, devalued. None of the because things are just so overused now. Oh, he's one of the GOATs. No, like you said, John, greatest, singular.
Mhm.
If you want to say he's one, he's a great player. He's one of the great players in this league. Yes, that's fine. That implies he's one of more than just one. There is not one of one there, but greatest, the best, singular.
Mhm.
So I don't know. my brain hurts right now just thinking of the logical arguments that come from that whole discussion and what you have to do to twist yourself in a pretzel to even make it seem like it makes sense.
Yeah, see, I'm still banging the drum for Sterling Sharp to get into the Hall of Fame because I think for a 5-year period he was the second best receiver in football who played in the same era as the greatest receiver ever, Jerry Rice. I mean, he put up big numbers before Brett Favre got to Green Bay, and then when they were together, it was magical. He had a shortened career, and again, in football, we put players in that have had shortened careers, like Gale Sayers.
It's still difficult,
Davis had very short careers. But it's a sport that is based on collisions. Like, I mean, how many guys? Forget Tom Brady. I mean, 23 years. That's insane. But I mean, if a guy has a dominant career for 7 years as a wide receiver, Calvin Johnson's in the Hall of Fame basically on that.
Here's the problem, though, John. Wide receiver numbers now absolutely dwarf, and this is for many reasons other than the fact, like, this isn't a talent situation. It's just a matter of, well, the game's different.
Sure.
So the problem is when you look at Sterling Sharp's numbers, even at his peak, they pale in comparison to some of these maybe good receivers in this league. You know what I mean? 1,000-yard season used to mean something in this league. It really doesn't now. You know what I mean? It's not that it's not an accomplishment. It doesn't mean you didn't have a good season. But it's not quite that, wow, he had 1,000 yards this season. No, that number's like 1,400 yards. That's the new benchmark. It's inflation, John. It's just like offense we've seen in every offense situation, over the last 15, 20, 25, 30 years. You can trace it all the way back to 1978 when they changed the defensive rules. That was the first push towards a more offensive game. And we've only seen that magnified quite a bit over the last 20 years in the 21st century. So, of course, these numbers are going to be inflated, but you look at a pretty good receiver in this league, and they can get 1,000 yards, no problem. You know why? Because they can catch balls in the middle of the field and get a bunch of yak. You couldn't do that when Sterling Sharp was playing. Get his head knocked off. So, the problem is, and I agree with you, I think he should be in, even with the shortened career. Not everyone with a shortened career and a dominant stretch deserves to be in, but to your point, I think he has a very strong case. The problem is, the longer we get away from it, the more his numbers are going to just kind of, and this isn't the right way to look at it, but they're going to look at his numbers versus, I mean, I'm just throwing a name out there, but AJ Green. Do you think AJ Green's a Hall of Fame player? No. He's a really good receiver. He had made some nice plays during his stretch, but people are going to see his numbers and they're going to dwarf Sterling Sharp's. But Sterling was obviously the better player. So that's the problem that we're heading into, especially with some of these older offensive players, because they're not going to have a chance. And especially as that room, the Hall of Fame voting room, gets younger.
Yeah, you can average 58 yards a game receiving and crack 1,000 yards in a season. So 58 yards receiving, I mean, if you look at that in a box score, you don't go that guy had a dominant game. 5 catches, 58 yards, no touchdowns. It's like, okay, that guy helped the offense, but, I don't think the defensive coordinator planned for that guy all week, right? But I think if you were playing the Packers in the late 80s and early 90s, you were planning to try to stop Sterling Sharp. Again, Jerry Rice is the greatest receiver ever. I think the gap between him and number 2 is sizable, probably more so than any other position, right? I mean, I'm Brady and the next great quarterback, the next best quarterback. There's a gap there, but I think also Rice to the next best receiver, who you can make a case for Randy Moss, or you can, even go with, Don Hudson. I mean, who played like 100 years ago, but his numbers look ridiculous from that time. I'm a big Paul Warfield guy. I think if he had played in the modern era, God knows what his numbers would have been Antonio Brown /
Steve
Julio
Largent.
Jones all rolled into one. Steve Largent put up big numbers, exactly. But I'd say he was drafted in '88. From that point forward, for about 5 years, he was the second best receiver in football, without question. And he did it without Brett Favre. Before Brett Favre got there, and when he got there, like I said, they were unstoppable. But I think he belongs in there. I mean, Jerry Kramer, another Packer who, one of the greatest guys in the history of the sport, had to wait forever to get in, and you never heard him complain. He kind of, did what he did. Was still a very visible guy, and finally we got in. It was a great moment. So Terrell Owens blowing up because he didn't get in his first year of eligibility kind of, sums up Terrell Owens, who I think Skip Bayless said TO stands for Team Obliterator, because every team he went to, he kind of blew it up at some point, right? Whether it's
look, the talent was
great
undeniable.
Player still, but oh, absolutely. What he did in the Super Bowl against the Patriots is legendary. The guy was playing on a broken ankle, and he's still in a massive game. No, sensational player. It belongs in the Hall of Fame, but he's a Hall of Famer. Whether it's first ballot or second ballot or third ballot. Welcome to the club. Here's the gold jacket.
Yep. No, I agree. So. Before we go, though, I do want to bring up one other quarterback, a guy that you actually already mentioned earlier, and that's Russell Wilson. Because there was a report this morning or late last night. I don't know. I saw it this morning, so I apologize if it was last night and everyone saw it and we've already talked about it. But I saw it this morning, and it was basically before Russell Wilson got traded, he had demanded or requested that Pete Carroll and management be gone. And I think a few days later, Russell Wilson was traded to the Denver Broncos. So the Seahawks clearly, if this is true, clearly chose which side they belong on. And look, I mean, after 1 year, and I'm not going to put a bow on this whole thing. I mean, Russell Wilson could go out and have 4 straight MVP seasons. You don't know. I don't know. I don't know the future. I wish I did, John, because I could make a lot of money, make some nice bets, better bets than what I've been making. Seriously. But that's the point. It could happen. It could not. He could go out and throw 5 touchdowns over the next 4 seasons. All these things are possible. But right now, based on what we've seen, the Seahawks clearly made the right decision. Even if, I'm not, I like Pete Carroll. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's weird. I think he's a pretty good coach. I think my respect for him, I guess, went up a little bit more this year because I wasn't the biggest Russell Wilson fan, but I always kind of tend to lean towards quarterback, and he was able to make it work without him, and kind of the decision looks good on the Seahawks part is what I'm trying to say. At this point, though, what's going to happen year 2 in Denver? Maybe we were wrong. Maybe Sean Payton's going to bring out the best in Russell Wilson and put him in a better situation to succeed. I don't know. It could happen. I'm not going to bet against Sean Payton because he's had a track record. So it's I don't know. Russell Wilson's a guy who I think quietly is not quietly. What am I talking about? He's very out. He's very full of himself. Let's put it that way.
Oh, yeah.
I think he very much believes, and he does it in the most unassuming way. Well, it's obnoxious, but it's polite, which I think confuses people. Mm-hmm. Where people are like, exactly. Oh, he's just a good guy. No, he is wildly arrogant. I think he has a far much more inflated view of himself than what he actually is. And unless Sean Payton can kind of put that in check, I don't think too much is going to change in Denver. Although I do think Sean Payton's a guy that could demand that type of respect from Russell Wilson. Again, I'm not saying that Russell Wilson's a malcontent. I'm just saying he is the most polite, arrogant person I think I've ever seen in a athletics standpoint, professional sports.
He's
standpoint.
Eddie Haskell from Leave It to Beaver. Sorry for the real old reference, but but essentially, very passive aggressive and a guy who has that smile on his face, but he's acting like an a-hole and so full of himself, like you say. Whereas Rodgers acts like an a-hole and is full of himself, but he's kind of out there with it.
Yeah,
he owns it. Yeah, it's like I'm a jerk and I'm quite happy being that guy. So I think people kind of respect that more than the phony guy, right?
Oh,
and
absolutely.
I know as a LeBron guy, LeBron's been accused of that stuff in the past. Very passive aggressive, all of that thing. So whereas like Kobe wasn't that game, Kobe was just aggressive.
Well,
So people kind of respected that more than the way LeBron sometimes, does things behind the scenes.
and you said it before too, that like I've said it about LeBron. I think one of the things that drives me nuts about him is because I think he's fake. I think
Hmm.
he tries too hard and it's very obvious. Like the whole reading the book things, all
Hmm.
that stuff, all this commentary. It's like, dude, sometimes just don't say anything. Just
Right.
and I think that's one of the issues that, if you're not a fan of the team that LeBron's been on, that's one of the things you're gonna go to. You're like, all right, dude, like, come on. We can see, like Russell Wilson, when you say you rehab 18 hours a day, we know that's BS.
Right.
Like how stupid do you think we are to buy into that? Like, just be honest. I mean, you don't have to be like, I'm just saying, like, give me a non-answer, if anything. Just don't try to sell me on 18 hours a day and, let's ride and all this other corny nonsense. Just focus on football. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens in year 2 with Russell Wilson. And it's going to be one of the bigger storylines. Obviously, wherever Aaron Rodgers goes, that's going to be a storyline. And we're going to follow it. So, all right, that's going to do it for us here this week and today, of course. So we will be back on Monday. Maybe we'll have some more answers or more clarity as to the landing spots for Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr, Jimmy G, and who knows? We'll see. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we will talk to you tomorrow or Monday.